Welcome to episode 4 of Mark on Comms. This is my takeaways from week 2 of the first round of the Euroleague Women regular season. Today I'm going to take you through the results that happened in this second week. I'll also look at how my predictions stacked up. Quick heads up, didn't do so great this week, but that's interesting in itself. And then we'll jump into what my big takeaways from the week are, some interesting points, and maybe some early assumptions from my side as well. Without further ado, let's jump in and have a look at the week's results. Okay, week 2, and here are the results from the 8 games that we had. First off, Mersin picking up a win against Brno. Brno pushed Mersin pretty hard actually in that game. I was expecting it to be a bigger win for Mersin, but the Turkish team managed to ride out that storm and finally pick up that win. Fenerbahce cruised relatively easily against Zaragoza on their home floor, a 20-point win. Polkowice adding to the misery at the moment for Villeneuve Dask, a 90-63 win on their home floor in Poland. Another home win in the fourth game as Praha made relatively light work of Győr in the end. And then probably the upset of Wednesday's games was DVTK picking up a win against Skio. Huge credit, Skio started really well. DVTK coming back, a lot of composure and really feeding off that raucous home crowd, making Group A an exceptionally exciting group at the end of game day 2. On the Thursday we had 3 games, Olympiakos losing to Bourges at home by a big amount as well. That's an interesting one, that Olympiakos didn't see the home court bump that some of the other teams saw in game day 2. Avenida, they absolutely capitalised on their home courts. A commanding win over Lorn. Lorn pushed them hard, particularly in the third quarter, but Avenida eventually had the depth of quality to come away with a comfortable win on their home floor in Salamanca. And then the final game of the week, Valencia against Umana Reya. I pitched this as the youngsters of Umana Reya against the depth and quality of experience that Valencia has, and it turns out that Reya had the better of the Knights, coming away with a 75-67 win. That's a really interesting one for me. So let's have a look at how my predictions went for this week. Okay, game 1 was relatively easy one to call. Mersin on their home floor. They've obviously got a stacked roster again this year as they look to get back to the finals. That was an easy one. Mersin come away with the win. Fenerbahce, similar situation. Reigning champions were always going to head into that one as favourites, even more so playing in Istanbul. Polkowice against Villeneuve Dask. This one really came about from my concerns from week 1 that I had around Villeneuve Dask. And Polkowice, a kind of steady away, stable team. So that one I got right. Praha against Győr. Again, Praha had a bit of a tough week 1. Felt back on their home floor. Another week under their belts would be too much for Győr, and that turned out to be the case. The next one was a difficult one to call. DVTK at home, a much better team than they are when they're on the road. But Skio looked phenomenal in week 1, picking up that huge win on their home floor. So that's why I plumped for Skio. Couldn't have been more wrong, really. DVTK showed a huge amount of heart, and their crowd really pushed them on to that win. So that was a one that I didn't get right this week. Moving forward to Thursday's games, Olympiakos against Bourges. Bit similar to my argument around Villeneuve Dask. Olympiakos really did show worrying signs in game day 1. Bourges, a nice, strong, stable, experienced, high-level roster on the road, picking up the win against Olympiakos relatively easily as well. Avenida against Lond. This is where it started going wrong in a big way for me. I let my heart rule my head. Maybe I won't let that happen again in future weeks. I had a soft spot for Lond. I thought maybe this could be the year that they push on and get some wins. But Avenida's depth of quality was really just too much. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail of that later on in today's episode. But yeah, I was wrong on that one. Lond couldn't pick up the road win. Avenida were too strong for them. And I was wrong on the last game as well. Again, betting on the fact that Valencia had a phenomenal game day 1 and that they have all of that depth of quality and a huge amount of Euroleague Women experience in there as well. Players that have been to the finals, former MVPs of Euroleague Women. But Umana Reya another big performance from them, combining that experience that they have as well as some of the younger breakthrough players, really has paid off, picking up a 8-point win against what could be a title challenging Valencia. Is a real statement from them early in the season. So we're now going to head over to my big takeaways from this week 2 of action. My first takeaway from week 2 of the first round of the Euroleague Women regular season, well, the first one to look at without a shadow of a doubt is the depth of Avenida's bench. They have a truly deep roster, tons of talent, almost all the way 1 through 12. In fact, 1 through 12 competitive high-level players. You've got the experienced players in there, the likes of Fazula and Gil and Dominguez. You've also got absolute superstar youngsters coming through, the likes of Sika Kone. Really grabbed the attention yesterday for me. 16 points, 13 rebounds, had a double-double in under 12 minutes. That's unbelievable from her. And then some real highlight players coming out of the woodwork as well. Carter, she had a big game as well, 16-point game. Garantes, weirdly, is becoming more of a provider than a scorer with her move across from Skio to Avenida. But literally 1 through 12, this Avenida roster is stacked. Tons of experience, a nice sprinkling of youth in there as well. Martin, another young player, just 18 years of age, coming and playing almost 28 minutes yesterday. Really controlled the tempo, dealt with the emotions and the roller coaster of a EuroLeague women's game so beautifully. Ended up with 9 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. I just think this depth of roster for Avenida is really interesting. They might not have those 1 or 2 absolute mega stars in that roster, but they do have 12 players. So 1, they'll be able to deal with injuries far more effectively than a lot of the other teams. And 2, they're not going to get fatigued. They're going to be able to run through 40 minutes of high-level basketball, whereas other teams may only be able to put 30, 35 on the floor. And that extra 5-10 minutes of top-level basketball could be the difference in a lot of games this year for them. Avenida, an interesting one. I'm really looking forward to see how that team develops through the season. My next takeaway is exactly how close is Group A going to be. I have a feeling this one is going to scrap it out all the way to the end. It's the only group that has 4 teams on exactly the same record after game day 2. Skio, DVTK, Avenida, Lond, all with 1 win and 1 loss to their name. It's going to be a really intense battle over the next 4 game days to see which 3 of these 4 teams will progress through to round 2. And remember, you want to progress with as many wins as you possibly can. So there's going to be a battle all the way through this first round matchup within these 4 teams. It feels like it might be Lond that miss out, which would be heartbreaking because I definitely feel that they've taken a step forward this season. I think Skio, Avenida will probably be the stronger 2 teams. DVTK picking up that 3rd spot. So if you were asking me now, where would I put these teams in order? I'd probably say Skio will top the table. I think Avenida will drop into 2nd place. DVTK 3rd and maybe Lorne 4th. Again, so early, so many twists, turns, potential injuries, potential new recruits and new signings coming in. It's hard to say. But the whole point of this Mark on Comms and the content I'm bringing you is to try and bring you some insight, some takes on what's going on in EuroLeague Women's. Not always going to be takes that everyone likes or agrees with, but that's my take on Group A. It's going to be a close one, that's without a doubt. My third big takeout of the week, without a shadow of a doubt, and I'm going early here. My brain is already thinking about those awards ceremonies in April that we'll have at the Final 6, and I'm focusing in on that Young Player of the Year award. This is going to be tough to decide. This truly is going to be a really difficult one to pick. Looking at the opening few weeks, it feels like this season, maybe more than previous seasons in recent years, that we have an unbelievable crop of young players. They're not just going to have good early years in EuroLeague Women, but potentially are going to be leaders of their teams. And I've put a few players' images up on the screen for you, but this isn't an exclusive list without a doubt. These are the ones that have probably grabbed the attention early on this season. The likes of Slate at Villeneuve d'Ascq, Lecon at Lond, Martin at Avenida, and then the young pairing at Umana Rea of Villa and Cuyer. They have all had big games, and the thing that's really made me excited by the young crop of players that we see this season and the early 2 games that they've had so far is how far down their journey they are as basketball players already. They're not making a huge amount of unforced errors. They're not making bad in-game decisions. They're mature above their playing years already. They're putting in big performances. They're willing to step up and lead their teams on the court. And I think a lot of this stems from the fact that most of these players have been leaders at the age group stages of their national teams. So you look at U20s, U18s, U16s, and the Euro baskets that we have each year for those, you can see these players taking those leadership roles, gaining their maturity early in their careers so they can deal with pressure moments, with big games and titles on the line. And it's showing. It truly is showing. These first 2 weeks, we've seen some big performances, some standout performances, not just from the 5 I've highlighted, but from quite a few young players across the league. And I'm not going to lie, I'm excited to see how their seasons and the other young players' seasons develop. But one thing's for sure, it is a monumentally difficult task come April to pick who the Young Player of the Year is going to be. But I look forward to that awards ceremony because I'm sure whoever receives that will have absolutely deserved that award. Okay, my final takeaway of the week, and this one is probably going to get me the most criticism of all 4 of my takeaways. I'm doing it. Yes, I am. I'm picking my final 6. As it stands right now, these are the 6 teams I think will make it through to that new look final 6 tournament in April. Clearly, there's going to be returnees from last year. Fenerbahce, reigning champions, 2-0 already, making it look pretty easy at the moment. 4th place finishers last year. Mersin, again, have recruited a strong roster, have made relatively light work of their first 2 games, so I predict that they will be there. So 2 Turkish teams will be there for sure. Umana Raya have also impressed me. That balance that they have of experience and youth, and how they're playing as well. Their style of play is super exciting, and I think we'll get them a lot of wins this year. Praha, last year's 3rd place team, I think they will be back to the final 6 as well. They've not had a bright start to their regular season, but I think they have enough quality, both playing and coaching, to get that job done, to get them through to the tournament in April. I think Skio will return after missing out last year, obviously, from the 2022-23 season. They were our 3rd place team. I think they'll be back as well. I think the introduction of the likes of Salon is a key piece to them. They obviously had a bump in the road this week against DVTK, but I'm sure they'll take learnings from that. And then the final team to complete this final 6 prediction after game day 2. Let me remind you, it's only game day 2, so I'm proper putting my neck on the line here, is Valencia. Again, they've clearly recruited with that final 6 in mind. They have a ton of talent who have been there, done that, won Euroleague Women's titles, won a huge number of games on the international stage. I think they are set to do that. Again, a bump in the road for them. But I think they have a roster that will push them through and will stay the distance and see them through to the final 6 in April. So there's my 6 as I see it. I'd love to hear your comments. Absolutely, at me all you want. Tell me who I've missed, what mistakes I've made. But my 6, as I see it right now after game day 2, Fenerbahce, Raya, Mersin, Praha, Skio, Valencia. I said it. I locked it in. It's on video. We're in. I look forward to hearing your comments on my selections. Okay, before we wrap up for the day, let's have a sneak peek at game day 3 and the slate of 8 games next week. Again, we have a nice even split between Wednesday and Thursday. 5 games on the Wednesday and 3 games on the Thursday for us to get our teeth into. Big game to open up with Olympiacos against Mersin. That is a tough game for Olympiacos. They really can't afford to go 0-3 though, so they really have got to target that game as a must-win situation for them. Polkovica against Fenerbahce. Polkovica coming off the back of a win. Fenerbahce obviously reigning champions, 2-0 so far. It's a tough challenge for the Polish team, but I think, on their home floor, it gives them more of a chance to cause the upset. Skio against Lond. Both these teams want to bounce back from losses this week. Skio on their home floor again probably look the stronger or the favourite out of those two. Lawns certainly need to regather a little bit of composure to look to go again. We then have Villeneuve d'Ascq against Zaragoza. And again for Villeneuve d'Ascq, this game against Zaragoza potentially becomes a must-win game. They're 0-2 right now. They need to push on. They need to break through and get a win within the first 3 weeks of the season, or it really does leave them a mountain to climb in their group. However, Zaragoza, they've got a relatively strong roster. Be interesting to see how that one plays out. Valencia against Győr. Valencia, obviously on their home floor, much stronger proposition than when they're on the road. I think potentially maybe a little bit too strong for Győr in that situation, but that could be an interesting battle, two contrasting styles of basketball going toe-to-toe. Then on Thursday, DVTK against Avenida. That is a huge game. There is no two ways about that. That is a monster of a game. DVTK back in front of their electric crowd in their home arena makes them a tougher proposition. Avenida struggled on the road in game day 1 in Italy. Will the road be their nemesis this year? They'll want to prove a point after a strong win in game day 2. Another big game, Umana Reja against Praha. This year's breakthrough team for me so far. Reja on their home court taking on last year's third place team Praha. Praha coming off the back of a good win in game day 2. That could be a really interesting battle between those two. And then we have Bourges against Brno. Another close game. Bourges looking good as a team, coming together week 2, looked good. Brno obviously had an opening game day win, a nice big comfortable win on opening game day, gave them some confidence. Couldn't convert that in game day 2, but they certainly look at an exciting proposition this year, Brno. So that final game, probably home court advantage may play out on that one. But Brno will certainly push them, I imagine, for the full 40 minutes. Thank you so much for joining me here for episode 4 on Mark on Comms. I hope you're enjoying what I'm putting out there. I'd love to hear from you. Please do send me some messages on any of the social media channels. Drop some comments as well. I'd look to respond to those if you send them through. But yeah, hopefully you enjoy week 3, which is just around the corner as much as I will. Until then, I'm sure I'll see you all courtside soon.